Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. A lot of conversation, a lot of chatter within the Miami Hurricanes fan base on Damien Martinez and whether Miami should go after him in the transfer portal or not. I myself, the last 48 hours, have gone back and forth on this one. I want to dive into this conversation and talk about the reasons why I think Miami should be going after Damien Martinez, but also recognize that a lot of Miami Hurricane fans who are a little bit skeptical on whether Miami should aggressively pursue Damien Martinez. There's also some really valid points on that side as well. Really excited to dive into this one. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Miami Hurricane fans. The amount of support you guys show the boys, whether we're talking the recruiting trail, the transfer portal, that stuff means the absolute world to us. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But much more importantly, really the reason why I am doing this is I want to hear from you guys because, again, I've gone back and forth. I was laying in my bed last night thinking about the perspective of Damien Martinez wearing a Miami Hurricanes uniform in 2024. So would love to hear from you guys in the comment section as well, whether you agree with some of these takes, whether you don't. Light it up, let it fly in the comment section. Now let's get into Damien Martinez, and I think you can split this into some pros and cons, and I think the overarching argument that Miami should be going after Damien Martinez is the idea that this Hurricanes roster heading into 2024 is not only one of the dangerous teams in the ACC, I think it's one of the most dangerous teams in the country. They check a ton of boxes of what you want to see for a team that can really make some noise in the months of November and December. And if you're Mario Cristobal, you're looking at this 2024 year as a year that you want to push your chips into the middle of the table and say, we're going to go all in to maximize what this team can be in 2024. And you look at Damien Martinez, this is a running back that there is no question in my mind makes this Miami Hurricanes running back room better. And quite frankly, would be the best running back on this Miami Hurricanes roster. Really no questions asked. And that's not a knock on guys like Mark Fletcher. I've been extremely vocal. I think Mark Fletcher is an absolute dude. But Damien Martinez, you dive in to what he's done at Oregon State the last 2 years, extremely impressive. He's only going into year 3 of his college football career. You dive into some of the numbers. I mean, I'm sure many Miami fans are kind of familiar with over 1,000 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, but you start diving into some of the deeper numbers. Forced missed tackles, 57 of them last year. 10-plus yards runs, 39 of them. 3.82 yards after contact per carry. Damien Martinez is a top 10 running back in the country. And you look at the perspective of what this passing attack can be, and then you look at what the rushing attack can be with one of the best offensive lines in the country, with potentially Damien Martinez running behind that offensive line. We've said it multiple times. It's no secret what Mario Cristobal wants this offense to look like. They've put a ton of resources into building one of the best offensive lines in the country. Yes, that's important in terms of pass protection for Cam Ward. That's also going to pay dividends in this rushing attack as well. And you put Damien Martinez behind this running back, this offensive line, 6 foot, almost 240 pounds, probably the most physical running back that you see in the country. That is a potential offense for Miami that is extremely attractive, and it makes this Miami Hurricanes team significantly better heading into 2024. So I think the overarching argument is that you want to maximize this team. This is a year where I think you got to push your chips into the middle of the table, really sell out to be a special team in 2024. Damien Martinez, I think, makes that team. I think that exactly lines up with what we talked about, I guess you'd say, right? Damien Martinez is we're pushing our chips into the middle of the table. We're trying to be a special team in 2024. Now, some other conversations that have to do with this is you look at the running back room, you have a ton of young talent, right? Guys like Mark Fletcher, especially with some of the injury concerns, I think that also makes Damien Martinez a little bit more attractive. Now, you look at some of the things that I think Miami needs to make sure that they're checking their boxes on before pursuing Damien Martinez is you look at this Hurricanes roster, we've been extremely vocal that it's a lot of checks next to those boxes in terms of what this depth chart looks like heading into 2024. There's one big concern that we have. We've talked about it a lot over the last couple of weeks. That's in the back end of this defense. And so if you're Mario Cristobal, you're this coaching staff, can you get Damien Martinez onto this roster, but also make sure you're going to have the ability and the resources to address the back end of this defense as well. Because if it's a choice of, hey, we can either go get Damien Martinez and bring him in, but that's going to hurt our ability to go and get some elite guys in the defensive back room, you probably go and make sure that secondary squared away, because we don't have a ton of question marks about that running back room. We might have some, but not a ton. But we have a lot of question marks about what the secondary looks like. So if you're Mario Cristobal, if you're going to pursue Damien Martinez, in my mind, you have to know that if we do go get Damien Martinez and get aggressive to add one of the best running backs in the country heading into 2024, making sure that you can also address some of the other question marks that you have in this program, specifically in the back end. I think the second question that you're going to play around with is, you look at this running back room. Do you want to keep this running back room as it is? If you bring in Damien Martinez, you might see some running backs hit the transfer portal for Miami. Now, you have that argument, and I think it's a very valid argument. There are a lot of running backs in this room that we've been extremely excited about, guys like Citizen, guys like Chris Johnson. I look at it and say, if you have the opportunity to bring in Damien Martinez, really maximize this team in 2024, and you lose one of those young running backs to the transfer portal, I would chalk that up to say that's how the game works at the modern era of college football. And hopefully you wish that one of the kids the best that decides to leave the program. But I don't know. You already have a loaded running back room, and there's not a ton of carries to be had in that running back room right now with how loaded it is. If you lose a running back, but you're able to maximize this running back room and significantly enhance it heading into 2024, I think you probably take that proposition if you're Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes. And so when you start looking at these arguments, I really think it comes down to one thing, and that is, we all know that Damien Martinez steps into this Miami Hurricanes running back room and makes this running back room better. In fact, is going to be the best running back in this room heading into 2024. I don't think there's many questions about that. Damien Martinez, a bona fide top 10 running back in the country, the number 2 running back in the transfer portal. I think the one question that you have, if you're Mario Cristobal, that you need to make sure is answered before you get Damien Martinez is, can we make sure that we can get aggressive in the defensive back room to make that secondary as good as it can be, address some of those question marks? And if that answer is yes, and you say, hey, we can go get Damien Martinez, but also address some of our needs in the back end of this defense, in my opinion, it's fire away. This is a year, again, circling back, that you want to push your chips into the middle of the table and say, we want the best Miami Hurricanes team that we can have possible heading into 2024. There's no argument about it. Damien Martinez makes this Hurricanes roster better, and that's kind of what we said Miami's goal would be in the second transfer portal window, maximizing the ceiling of this team. There are not that many question marks outside of the defensive back room for this Hurricanes roster. Damien Martinez makes this team better significantly heading into 2024. I've gone through the pros and cons. I am on board with Damien Martinez becoming a Miami Hurricane as long as Miami knows that they can address some of the other questions they have on this roster as well in the transfer portal. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Again, I've gone back and forth on this one, but after watching some Damien Martinez highlights this morning, it signed me up for him running behind this Miami Hurricanes offensive line in 2024. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section, and we'll talk to you guys later.